Good afternoon. I call the 24 April 2024 of the University of Arizona Presidential Third Committee order. Rachel, can you confirm we have a quorum? Suzanne?
Yes, how do we have a quorum?
Thank you. Building on our discussion we had last week, our first item on the agenda is the leadership characteristic of the 23rd President of the University of Arizona. As you recall, the board asked to put a list together from all of you. We got some submissions, and that will be the list that we can start working on. So remember, the idea behind having that list or the input from all of you is to refine leadership experiences and attributes that we most value for the next president. And your input will be used to draft material that we will use to recruit exceptional individuals into the search. So I would like to start the conversation and have the group, whoever wants to start the conversation and be leading with some of the lists that you submit. I know that some of you did send us that list. Please feel free to be the first one. Just raise your hand. Wow.
Once there's first and then sweat.
All right, I'll go
Okay.
first.
Cindy.
Just that quiet that makes everybody go, oh, okay, now I need to do that. So the key piece that I felt was essential was to be communicative, both within the university, but also across Southern Arizona and certainly across the nation. I think we need to, that person needs to share the many activities that we're doing, why we're doing them, and what's the outcome of that with everyone, so people know what we're doing and why we're doing it, and have a chance to have feedback in the opposite direction as well. So communication is at the top of my list.
Thank you. Humberto.
Cecilia, I sent you a list of about 10 leadership qualities that I'd ask you to share with the group so we could discuss. I don't know if you did that or not.
I forwarded to the
Yes,
board.
and we
yeah.
have that in the portal for people to look at. And we will
Okay,
use
so
it.
it's in the portal. All right, yeah. So what I did is I came up with my own list, and with the hope that everybody would review, come up with a candidate or your comments and additions or deletions. So at the end, we have a job description. I haven't bothered to look at the list of potential candidates or people that sent their resume, because first we have to establish what is it we're looking for. When I post for a job, I post the qualifications first, so that people that do apply know what we're looking for, because we don't want to get everybody in the world to apply, because otherwise we'd end up with 1,000 candidates in there. So posting the qualifications, the leadership qualification, to me is number one. So I think that's a first thing we should be doing to move forward. Spend the time to decide what is it that we're looking for, and move from that point on.
Thank you. Yeah, that's the reason last week, or even during our phone calls that we have with each of you, we have been preparing you so that you can think of those characteristics, traits, skill set that you would like with, to input into this conversation at the same time, so we can help and we refine it and polish it to where we want to take this to what you say. I'm not sure if we can call it just job description, but that's the it's the job description, but we want to make sure that the characteristic is refined for us, so that the search committee and also the person that we're going to introduce next will be able to look at those areas. I would like to hear from other members of the committee if you would like to participate in those skill set, traits, leadership.
Can I just?
Yeah.
Heard what you submitted was terrific. I mean, it literally is exactly what we're.
The leadership qualifications.
Yeah, I mean, you
I started
clearly,
bringing copies to everybody and I forgot.
you clearly put thought into it, and you also did it with some speed.
Yeah.
Which was impressive. I mean, I think we broke up and went home, and you went home and did it.
Let me tell you what I did. I asked a number of friends throughout the community to give me their input. None of them were in the search committee. So I then made a compilation of all the suggestions that were given to me. There was a letter of petitions. So I came up with what you got there in front of me.
You want to read it? Is there a way to put it? Can we pull it up?
Yeah,
Consensus
or
on the
can you
board.
read it? Can you read it, Doug, or
Sure,
Fred?
you bet. So,
Going.
point number one, personal integrity, honest and courage. A highly ethical, collegial, accessible, consultative leader with a collaborative and transparent leadership style. Okay, strong point. Two, commitment to U of A's vast offering of programs and research, its land grant mission, and its role in building the economy and quality of life in the city of Tucson, Pima County, state of Arizona, and beyond. Point number three, an innovative, entrepreneurial, and critical thinker who understands the relationship between academic priorities and budgeting, and with the ability to think outside the box to create new revenue sources for the university, including growing our online presence in a balanced manner that benefits students and the university's finances. Number four, an excellent communicator with a commitment to and understanding of fundraising, including leading our ongoing capital campaign and engaging with alumni and donors. Five, experience with knowledge of the challenges facing intercollegiate athletics, including a commitment to work cooperatively with the athletic director to manage the athletic department budget in the era of NIL and the transfer portal, and to create synergies between the school's athletic and academic units. Number six, a global and interdisciplinary thinker able to facilitate collaborative activities and partnerships across the state, nation, and world. Number seven, passion for the success of all students, faculty, and staff, being the leading voice on the power of education to change the lives of students while championing free speech and the free exchange of ideas. Number eight, a skilled diplomat able to lead in this time of polarization and social activism, who is comfortable working with students in a variety of constituencies and adept at dealing with the state legislature and governor, must be able to manage in a crisis and adapt quickly to today's dynamic higher education environment. Number nine, experience, knowledge, and understanding of A, national and global business, public policy, and cultural matters. B, regulatory policies and procedures governing higher ed institutions nationally and internationally to ensure compliance. C, strategic planning and the ability to use data to inform decision-making. And then number 10, which I really like, Bert, stamina and a strong work ethic. This is a difficult job. Touche.
Yeah, and when I receive it, I share with, with the regents and also with the staff so that we can start collecting from everyone. And I wanted to hear, besides you, because you put an amazing list and we just heard about this. So we don't duplicate, because as we receive from all of you, we probably have similar traits and characteristics, and then we can have one polish and refine that we can, submit to our search consultant. Yeah, go ahead, Desiree.
I think that was excellent. Like, there was nothing I would change. Point number 5, I thought was extraordinary.
Yes, the athletic department, yes.
But why number one?
I'm kidding. But I also would just want to echo and underscore that decisiveness. I think presidents that I want them to be a diplomat and to listen. But also, we've got, at some point, we have to decide and move forward, but also have that flexibility and that ability to be nimble. So I would just add that.
Thank you. Melanie?
Sure, thank you. I don't think these were rank ordered in order of importance at all, but 7, 8, 9, 10 were, I think, in rank order of importance, the first, second, third, fourth for me. And I really appreciate you pulling that together. One thing that struck me as I was listening is one of the ones related to campus sounded more provost than president. And I'm thinking, and that relates to this only in that the person who is president needs to work well with the person who is provost. And that is on my mind since we're in transition on those positions, and having this division of responsibilities as well as the team coming together is really important. And so I wasn't as sure about the kind of inward facing academics. There was one that kind of referenced, I don't remember what number it was, but all were
Thank
great.
you.
Yeah.
So we have Erin that wants to also make a comment. Erin.
Thank you, Regent Mata and committee. In addition to some of the things I flagged last week, I wanted to add a new one, which was just about being a a partner in the bigger education, the P20 education system, and thinking about someone who has the mindset and willingness to want to partner with our community colleges and with our K-12 institutions to really help build a strong pipeline and partnerships of students to come into the university.
Thank you, Erin. Any, go ahead.
I am convinced that our main product is education and research. The person must be an expert in higher ed, in the education and research that is the main product. And the other part I'm very concerned about is that we are utterly dependent on the money and students we bring in from out of state. We keep afloat our in-state students on the tuition we bring in from our out-of-state students, which we recruit nationally and internationally. We also are dependent on the $1 billion in research that is 40% of our budget comes from research dollars. We need somebody who can meet the challenge of the competition in higher ed with heavy headwinds and massive competition with all of our UC competitors and our near peers in the region. And this person has got to be able to fight on this terrain. It is our major product. We must be competitive.
Yes,
We need a leader in higher ed who is good at this.
yes, thank you. Thank you for your comments and input.
I
Fletcher?
heard that message, I think, especially from staff, that we should be recruiting a sitting president. We should be looking at someone who's already at this level that wants to come to Tucson, Arizona. I asked a question about a wider net, finance, government, healthcare industry. I think it's clear to me that the preference is academic. Someone, and not someone who's a dean, but someone who's a sitting president at another university that we could convince to come. Is that a safe statement in your view?
I think so. We are incredibly competitive and have been coming up in the world under our previous presidents. And I see this as critically important to that recruiting outside the state and that bringing in of the research dollars from outside the state, which are the majority of the money we make. So while I absolutely agree with the characteristics and the being able to work within Arizona, we need somebody who can compete at the national level and who really knows the job, because it'd be easy to get zoomed by our competitors at this point. They are sharks and we are headed into choppy water.
If I could add, I think that's desirable, but I would not want to make that like a given. We might have some outstanding people that are a little more up and coming. So I wouldn't want to say the city.
Doesn't have to be a sitting president.
Yeah, that's my point.
But somebody really good at this game.
I feel absolutely.
Thank you. Virginia, what do you want to say?
Yeah, and I wanted a little bit of follow-up. There are three things that, in addition to these wonderful attributes that we started with, this campus needs to be unified. The creation of a vision that draws people together out of their departments, out of their silos, into a shared objective around focused excellence in order to maintain brand value, but recognizing we can't afford to be as comprehensive as we once were, and new revenue sources. That's just the reality of higher education, and someone with experience around expanding the diversification of the balance sheet is really important, which gets me to a little bit about a dichotomy I want to draw out, Joellen and Nunn. Nunn's point is be mindful that the provost is one responsibility, the president, something else more external, more leadership oriented as opposed to less academic. Joellen, you're obviously talking about an academician, and I want to sort of put squarely on the table the question, how important is it? Yes, it is important that someone be familiar with higher education. Start that as the premise. Must they be academically credentialed in the traditional way and in order to be accepted? Or is the committee open to folks who have higher education experience, may not have sterling academic credentials, but meet these other character, skill, leadership, communication attributes that we talked about?
I think it's highly unlikely that you find someone who fits this moment at this institution who doesn't have academic credentials. It's not that we don't need those. It's not that we couldn't consider that, but our window of being able to get somebody who doesn't have quite the right experience, doesn't have quite the right connections, doesn't have quite the right feet on the ground, hasn't built an online presence, blah, blah, blah. I mean, all of these, has never taught a class, has never done the work of the institution, makes it much more likely that we have a wobble that puts us even further behind. We need somebody who can catch it and carry it right now.
Let me clarify, I'm not at all suggesting that it not be somebody who's been in a campus environment, familiar with higher education, but it is slightly different than must it be someone who has been a president? Could it
No.
be somebody who's exited higher education into another field, think tanks, government service, but in addition has higher education credibility, but hasn't defined their career as an academic leader?
I think it's unlikely.
Okay.
So we have Mark and then we have Caleb. So Mark is the first.
So I was gonna add to this excellent list. I think it's important to have someone who's willing to spend some time learning about the institution. It's complicated and learning about the university system and how legislative environment, this is a process. And I think that kind of learning, although there are many decisions to be made, I think someone should help with an open mind and grow that's for making big decisions. And that bears on the question, do we need a sitting president? I agree. I think it would be a huge advantage. There aren't many jobs in the economy that are analogous to university president. But I agree with Pete Hahn. I wouldn't want to say it's such. But someone who comes in has so much to learn already. I think it's a big advantage if they don't have to learn about the academic culture and how that works. If they don't have to learn how to deal with communities. So I'm sort of where Joellen is, maybe you're not quite. I think it's almost essential. But before we know what the pool looks like, I would say this is a so. The other couple of things I wanted to say is I think there's an advantage given the historical strengths of this university, just someone who has either a science and engineering background or has a lot of experience in that. I think, again, not a prerequisite, but I think that's would be a significant advantage. And I think it was sort of maybe implicit in your list when you talk about integrity, but I think a high degree of transparency explicitly is very important for this campus, this moment of having an instinct toward transparency. I think having some experience cultivating the media is going to be important. Sort of do that from day one. That one never expects the media to be always your friend, but it helps to have existing relationships and to have people who call first, write later. So I think those would be the only things I would add to this. Oh, and I wanted to say that I apologize for not submitting anything. I partly wanted to wait a little bit for the town hall, see what people said, wait to hear from other people. I have a few conversations set up with community leaders this week. So I will send something, but I wanted to get a little input into my head before launching the company.
Thank you, Mark. And we have Caleb, yeah, and then we have Mark.
Yeah, thanks everyone. Thank you, Regina. I think we're like all aiming toward the same thing. I think Fred, your for Regent, well, sorry. The discussion about vision is absolutely necessary to have a path forward. But then to get to Joellen's point, it's about the buy-in to be able to execute that. You can have the best vision in the world, but if you can't execute, then we're going to go nowhere. And I think that is what, correct me if I'm
You're
wrong,
right.
it's about
You're saying
getting
it better than I
the
am.
academic community to buy into that vision and not fight it. And I think that it's really about that influence and execution that comes after vision. So for me, and I think Bert, your list really encapsulated this. It really is about, having the integrity and the vision and then being able to get that actually done. And so I don't know if in this moment, someone completely outside, even if they do have a background, is going to be able to meet the demands of the moment and provide it.
Thank you. Marla and then David.
Yes, to follow along a little bit on some of Mark's comments, this, I think, speaks to some aspects of characteristics to look for in the president, but then also really kind of speaking to this process. And so I think both, you know, we want a level of engagement, and trust building and really a foundation, you know, to kind of come from this next president. And certainly we want that, you know, to see that of this process. You know, I often will say that, you know, what we do is one thing, but how we do it is probably even more important, because we could generate the best, most compelling idea, but if we haven't built kind of trust and a level of engagement for exchange and sharing, then it's likely going to be dead in the water even though it could be the most brilliant kind of set of direction. You know, this in and of itself is an exercise in you know, curating and taking stock of our assets, our tremendous assets as an institution, the ways in which we have some of the most phenomenal set of employees and students at our institution, really kind of taking stock of where we excel and where we like to kind of see the university, you know, grow over the next, you know, decade or so. So the process of engagement around this search is just really critically important. I think it's part of even some of the repair and restoration that's needed in order to ensure that we're a healthy organization to be engaged in such an important process. And so I think that's of great value and importance that we kind of certainly keep top of mind. I also wanted to kind of share, and it perhaps maybe highlight some of the communication strengths and the diplomacy that is needed, as well as some of the strategic nature that you have to diplomatically kind of push where push is needed. And that includes certainly maybe those skill sets coming into play inwardly at the institution, but I would also say external to the institution. You know, with all due respect, you know, of course, you know, the Arizona Board of Regents is the governing body across all three institutions. And we certainly need the president to kind of have, you know, that tenor about them to, you know, push in the directions to really garner collective support, not only from the institution that's going to stand behind them, but also our Board of Regents and the community at large. So I think that's kind of an important aspect when we think about communication.
Thank you. And that's a strong character, because to push internally and externally, that's what we're looking to, so that we have to have the strength for that kind of changes that we want to do. And sometimes we talk about organizational culture, which are the beliefs internally, is not written, but what we believe. So that's a good point. And we look at that too. Thank you. Do we have any comment? Yeah, Jenny, I'm sorry, David and then Jenny, okay?
I'm gonna pull from my three colleagues, Joellen and Mark. You know, I think that the desirable ability of somebody who spent time in academia, worked up, is highly desirable. But we could find somebody who's got a decade of being a very successful president and has learned all of those attributes. So I'm open to that. But I want to kind of build on what you said, Caleb, vision and execution. I talked a lot about vision and alignment. Alignment is different from execution, because, you know, we can have somebody who sets a vision and executes it in a vacuum, and we're all left behind, to your comment, Chair Duval. We have to have somebody that can bring the people along and align them with the vision where we're going. That's a huge attribute. So I want to put that on the table. I'm going to throw a wrench in the works. I personally, we spent a lot of time last time talking about our land grant mission and how we're all steeped in that. And I'm going to draw a little bit of line between public and private institutions. And I personally want to see somebody that has deep experience in a public institution, ideally a land grant. You know, Provost Glover made a comment in his interview, 15 years at University of Florida, identical profile to us, right? Land grant, AAU medical school. I spent 21 years there. He said he probably wouldn't have considered this opportunity were it not for the similarity of recruitment. And he sort of made off that comment, if Princeton would have called that, I would have said no. We are not the same animal as these private schools. Everything is good. Thank you, Joel. We've heard a lot of things. And I really need somebody that's got deep a public education institution works. It's almost a necessary condition to me to get in.
My contract says 40% research, 40% teaching, 20% service. Most faculty have a significant service component. That service is not just to each other or to the institution, it's to our state and the nation. And we take it incredibly seriously. It's not just our extension and outreach, which we do, it's also that we believe that we serve the people. And I know that that is both heartfelt and deeply meaningful. So a private institution has none of that.
No accountability to the governor's
None.
office looking at Katie, no accountability to the legislature,
Or to
no
the people.
accountability to the people, the citizens, the peoples of the state.
When they
Exactly.
get a review for their
Different
faculty
animal.
tenure, it says research, period. There is no teaching review. There is no service review, period. Our tenure is different. All of the major publics and especially the land grants have that very specific, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to, but it's,
Reinforcement.
he's right.
Thank you. And Jenny? Yeah.
I'm thinking about this from an international perspective and considering what Joellen said earlier about the growing international collaborations, our greater dependency on international students for tuition and so on. And I think, there's a shared assumption that I think needs to be explicit is what makes our university so great and why is it that people flock to the United States is because of these shared values about academic freedom, about tenure, about shared governance. I mean, these things are imperfect, but it is really what makes US institutions distinctive. And my concern is that if this person is not familiar with these very basic principles, these are values that are under threat throughout the United States. I'm afraid that could easily get lost by a leader who has not been only a faculty member, but in a leadership role in the institution.
Led in the
That is
trenches
at
for it.
risk. By bringing in someone who does not have these very basic values of a US higher education
Yeah,
institution.
and thank you for all the input. We're taking this and you're part of, of the committee that will bring, that we will discuss with the next item, which is I would like to move to the next item. Thank you so much. So the next item on the agenda is an update and discussion regarding the status of the University of Arizona search process to date. So to start off discussion, I would like to introduce Alberto Pimentel with SPNA, executive search who has been hired to lead the search. Alberto is well known here on campus, and also he's a leader in presidential search processes at the national level. So I will I will introduce him, and Alberto, the time is yours. So
Thank you. Thank you, and good afternoon, everyone. Let me share a little bit about myself and my firm so you get a sense of who we are and what we do, so that it helps to understand that as we talk about process and we talk about market, it establishes our knowledge base or our position. So SBA Executive Search is a woman minority-owned firm. We have over 30 years experience conducting higher education searches. The vast majority of what we do on an annual basis is represent universities and colleges across the country. About 5% of what we do on an annual basis is to represent organizations like national laboratories, foundations, professional associations, but all of those have something to do with higher education. The vast majority of our work, though, is to represent major research universities, in particular, public research universities. We have, over the years, conducted many searches for both R2 and R1 institutions, everything from presidential searches to dean searches and everything in between. We've also represented many of the nation's AAU institutions. We recently conducted searches for UCLA, University of Florida, South Florida, Central Florida, University of North Texas. We've been all over in terms of doing these type of searches. What is really consistent about what we do is the public nature of the institutions, and that the vast majority of them are minority serving or Hispanic serving institutions. That's a sweet spot, primarily because of the background of our firm and the consultants there. Now, in addition to that, we've done work here at this university. We just recently, on the final stages now of the provost search here. But previously, I've done many searches on this campus, and in the not too distant past, was fortunate enough to have the opportunity to recruit the new president of NAU, and more recently, the provost as well. So our experience in Arizona is extensive. But please know that as we approach this search, we don't approach it from the perspective that we know it all. In fact, we like to say that we have enough information to make us dangerous. So what we're going to expect from you as a committee is a lot of engagement, because you all have to share with us the things that we don't know, and put some texture behind things that are important to you, so we understand why they're important to you and why we need particular type of candidates. It's important for us to work together as a team, and that's been a hallmark of our firm. So in order to conduct the search and to do it well, while you will see me at every meeting, you'll also see a couple of my other partners. We felt that this was a type of search that really would benefit from having more than one partner on the docket. So I have two of the senior partners, Sal Venegas, who members of the Provost Search Committee recognized, and the other individual was Will Gates. Will was one of the founding partners of the firm, and he will be extensively involved in this process. The idea for us at this point is to make sure that we not only represent you well, but that we bring to the table as many qualified prospects as possible for you to consider. This is not a process that we run. This is not a process that is our process. This process belongs to you. My job as a consultant, that of my team, is to make sure that we provide you with the strongest possible prospects that are available. Our job is to make sure that if there are any questions, any doubts, any concerns about any of them, that you let us know what they are, so that we can then seek the information in order to enhance the understanding of the background, even if that means that it eliminates a prospect from further consideration. We want to be clear, we represent you. We have to treat the candidates and prospects with a great deal of respect. We have to treat them in a dignified way. We have to be engaged with them, but we represent you. And that means that our responsibility is to provide you not only with the information that might be on their CVs or in their letters, but information above and beyond that can help you make an informed decision. I want to emphasize for you to make the informed decision. It's not my decision to make. In the 30 some odd years that I've been doing this, I've yet to place anybody in terms of being the person who offers the job. I've worked on hundreds of searches, but the selection of who those individuals are, that's your responsibility. So I'm here to support them. If you ever at any point find that I'm crossing the line, please just tell me. I know where the line is, and if I step over it, let me know. I'll step back on my side. My job is to make sure that you're informed, so that way you can do your job. Let me answer the question, then I'll continue.
I think you clarified one of the questions that I had, because I think the newspaper must have gotten it wrong. That said there was a search committee, a search firm was going to come in, help with the placing but they said, do you be placing and making the recommendation? And I said, well, if that's the case, if you're going to be making the recommendation, what are we doing sitting here? But you clarified that, and that you're going to help us get in that direction. And we'll be making the recommendation. It's up to the Board of Regents to decide what recommendation they take. So you're not going to be making any recommendations.
Sir, that would be so far above
Okay.
my pay grade. That would not be something I would be doing.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you.
Now, part of what I'm hoping will happen is that we engage in a very interactive way. For those that you like, we're going to pursue. Those that you don't like, all I want to know is why you don't like them, so I don't bring more of that type to the table. So I'm hoping that we're going to have an opportunity to speak in very clear terms, very direct. Please know that I have very thick skin. I'm not married to any of the candidates or prospects that you're going to see. So just tell me what you think. And it's all towards the good, right? It's to make sure that we have the right level of individual for you to consider. Now, I've been asked several times, why are you moving so quick? What's the point? Yeah, on the surface, it seems quick, and I understand that. let me maybe explain to you from the perspective of the research consultant, what's really going on and why we have to move with a level of expedience. But I want to underscore that expedient does not mean that you take whomever is left standing. Expediency means that we move with a level of sure-footedness, in a thoughtful way, but we only move as fast as the quality of the pool allows us to. If you have a tremendously amazing pool, I want you to move quickly. If the pool is not what you're looking for, it doesn't meet your expectations, then let's slow it down. But there's reasons why we need to move with a level of deliberateness, with a level of intentionality. And let me tell you some of the reasons. So, in the spring, there were 11 presidential searches that were underway. 11. 8 of those 11 would be direct competitors to the University of Arizona. 8. That means there were members of the AAU. That means there were major research universities in the country. And so let me share some names. Stanford, Harvard, Yale, UC Berkeley, UCLA. We have Penn that did theirs, Michigan State did theirs. You had also UNC that just launched theirs. Right. In addition, you have other R1s like Cincinnati and New Hampshire that are also in that mix. That's a large group. Now you might say, well, hey, maybe that's a moment in time. That's true, but it's been a moment in time for the last 3-4 years. Every year for the last several years, there have been anywhere from 8 to 15 searches in the pool, right? Every year for the last 3 years. And that includes not only at the presidential level, but the provost level as well. And if I was really being honest, we're also going to include the folks at the dean level. So there's been a lot of movement. So one of the reasons for doing it is because there's a lot of movement. And right now, the only searches that are still ongoing, Harvard and Yale, but they're well underway because they started earlier on. You have the University of New Hampshire, that again started early on, so it's at the tail end of the process.
Columbia any minute now, right?
Yeah. But you have the one that is just launching is the University of North Carolina. And if you read the papers, Washington State's president just decided to step down after many, many years. So we could anticipate that search is going to get started in the fall as well. I don't know for sure, but very, very likely. There are also 2 others that I can't speak about that are absolutely going to happen in the fall. And we anticipate that there's going to be anywhere from 6 to 8 additional ones in the fall. Many of them, again, competitors to you. Not all of them AAU, but all of them R1, which is the category that you're in. So the marketplace is going to be crowded. From my perspective, the plate's pretty clear right now. If UNC is not going to really get their search started until the fall, and they're doing the listening sessions right now, then we have open range. We might as well get in there, and we might as well set a stake down and start talking to those individuals that are out there. We don't lose anything by doing it. You don't have to take them. Keep in mind, you as a committee are going to be deciding how fast we go or how slow we go. But it doesn't make sense to me not to take advantage of this lull, because when we get to the fall, it's going to be a crowded field. I did the UCLA search, and I was doing it at a time when all these others are going on. Let me tell you, it's a slugfest. The competition is fierce, and to something Joanna said earlier, you're swimming with sharks. They're institutions that are accustomed to being in the top, and that's where they want to be. They don't want to give any opportunity for someone to squeeze them out of where they're currently positioned. The other aspect of it is that it allows you time to be selected. I mean, think about it. You have months to think about the kind of person you want. And if you're not seeing it, you throw it back in. It allows you to have multiple bites at the apple. At the end of the day, I always want my clients to have more than one bite at the apple. So that if you don't see what you want, or if at the tail end of the process, the individual can't, you have enough time to do it again. Given the way these schedules usually run, If someone starts in the fall, that means they're really not going to be doing much in terms of interviewing until sometime next January or February. That gives me 3 bites at the apple. I want off the week. I want one now, and if you don't like what you see, I want one at the end of summer. If we don't like what the candidate said, I want another one in the fall. Puts you at an advantage. Yes, sir.
You used the term available. I think we might be interested in someone who's not available. So you talked about the pool and multiple universities, multiple applicants. Can you talk about the process of recruiting someone who's not necessarily looking for a job?
That's going to be every search I do, sir. We are going to go specifically after those individuals that meet the criteria that you've established. And once we know what the criteria are, what you're looking for, then we go after all of them. We will go after those individuals primarily who are not seeking another employment opportunity. In fact,
And can you speak to the confidentiality of that process?
In today's marketplace, it is highly sensitive. Those of you in higher education, you know that higher education loves gossip. Information runs fast. It circulates incredibly fast. And so individuals in a short period of time will tell you who you're looking at and what the prospects might be. So the need for confidentiality is going to be when we're putting that pool together. We need to protect the integrity. Keep in mind that if you're looking at a sitting president, as was illustrated earlier today, someone said, well, a sitting president would be ideal. I want to promise you that their boards don't take kindly to their presidents looking at other opportunities.
So we have a history of bringing 2 or 3 candidates to campus. It's very public. We just did that with the provost. And I expect that process would scare away someone that needs that kind of confidentiality.
The only individuals that will engage are going to be those individuals that are looking for a job, or those individuals that will benefit by having their name circulated. That everyone else does not benefit from it. And so you're going to find that most others are going to be very concerned about the level of exposure they will have, because the end result is they lose their job, their current job.
Is that a region conversation? Is there a region's policy that our candidates have to at some point go public? They have to be interviewed on campus?
Yes, there is a point in the process where they become public.
That's based on Arizona Supreme Court law.
Yes.
And know that we're speaking hypothetical, so it just depends on who's in the pool, right? At this point, we don't know who's going to be in the pool yet, but there may be individuals who doing a more public phase of the process. It's not a problem. We'll just have to see who's in the pool and who you like.
Some clarification, Jennifer, at the end, the candidate has to be public at the end, but could it only be one public candidate? Could you put forth a single candidate at the end of to the public phase? Is
Yes.
that allowable?
Yes. And each search is different.
Let's say for example, are you planning to have more than one candidate come to campus? Is that what's going to happen, or are you going to simply tell us who you're getting?
No, I think to the point Alberto made, I mean, each search takes on its own characteristics. I mean, some of it will depend on the pool of prospects.
Yeah.
I mean, if it turns out we've got 3 or 4 or 5 great picks, okay, then a more public bake-off is contemplatable. If it turns out there's only one, we might have to deal with that differently. So a lot of it depends on how things unfold as this committee does its job over the next several months.
20 years ago, in 2005, I had the unfortunate distinction of having to fire the president of the foundation, who had been with the foundation for 27 years. Good likings, said we got to get rid of him. Son of a gun. When I took that job, I said, I don't want to have to go through a search. Well, I ended up having to do the search. Here's a book. I found it. I spent tons of hours. I was spending 20, 30 hours a week at the university working with this. So, first of all, when we fired the president, I had to get an interim president. Fortunately, here at the university, we have a city president who's willing to stay here until we find somebody else to substitute him. So we are not in that rush to find a interim president. And then when it came down to, I had to, everybody, I had the donors, I had the professors, I had to, just about everybody involved. I wanted to get their thoughts as to what we needed to get. So at the end, when it came down to, there was, I think, three or five, I can't call it, I'd have to go back to my notes. 3 or 5 individuals that we invited. We met it, and the way we did it, I didn't have the entire search committee meet these people. So once we came up with a selection, we picked those that we're going to meet, and we met. I think there were 3 or 5 of us that we met privately at the airport. They flew in. We met in a room at the airport. We didn't disclose who they were. Nobody knew. So we ended up picking one. We came back to the search committee and recommended that person. The one we liked, when the school found out that he was going to be leaving, they kept him. So we didn't get number 1, which would have been ideal. But we ended up getting number 2, and that's the one that became public. And he had been at the university before, so he was a, I don't know if you remember Jim Moore. Jim had been what do you call it, a development officer for the LA College of Management. So he had an understanding of the school and the inner working. So, but it took about 6 months before we got to the right person, and very quietly. No one ever found out who the other people that came in to the campus that we interviewed. But with that, it was not 20, 30 people. It came down to 3 to 5 people. So they be very quiet, very private. Because if you get a group of this big, it's going to leak. Look what happened to the Supreme Court. The leak that on the abortion case. You think, and they've not been able to find out who made that leak, or the leak recently here at the state level. So there's leaks that would take place. So we got to be very careful, as you said, how to keep it confidential. Perhaps at some point we appoint a few individuals that do the final interview once we identify the people that qualify, that have the leadership qualifications that we're looking for, and interview them. And they might say no, they might say yes, or if we end up with 1 or 2 candidates, and we perhaps then at that point, without disclosing names, bring them back to the committee and say these were qualifications from XYZ and this others. So we need to make a selection of one or the other without disclosing the name. And I don't know how you do that. It's going to be very difficult, but I don't see how it could be that fast. Unless Doc came in and submitted an application, then we can make a decision immediately. But I don't think that's going to happen. But and the qualifications I put together, I didn't put them in any order. But let me tell you, I pretty much looked at Bobby Robbins, and those are the qualifications that I saw in the individual. Not to say that I'm saying Bobby Robbins is going to be your president, but those are the qualifications that I saw on Bobby Robbins. So, and perhaps we can find somebody else that has more qualifications that Bobby has. And if you can do that, can help us in that direction, we very much appreciate it.
So the last reason for designing a process that is friendly to candidates and prospects is simply this: is that once you engage an individual and they are enthusiastic about pursuing the role, there's a fuse that's lit. And that lit fuse ends up in some very interesting places. Number 1, once you've engaged an individual who's not on the job market, person says yes to us, next thing they do, human nature, start looking around at other opportunities. It's the first thing that happens. So we create our own little monster. Second, if we don't move quickly enough, there are a lot of leaks. And we need to make sure there aren't any, but there's a possibility of leaks. And when that happens, the current institution often responds in a very strong way. Usually it's a counteroffer, usually it's something to keep that individual there. So you may have had them, but you took too long, and they end up staying at their institution.
But one other question, in terms of what we're going to be offering, you see right now what's happening in sports. The numbers are out of control. Is that happening with the university presidents where, right now we're paying $1 million, so we're gonna have to pay 2, 3, 4, 5 million? Where's the range today?
You're fine. You're fine there. Looking at other institutions that have just closed in recent months, that are public institutions that would be your peer institutions, they're all about the same scale and salaries. You're gonna be fine there. The last thing I would say is that part of what happens as well is candidates and prospects grow cold. If you don't demonstrate that you're interested in them while you're looking around, they just decide, if you were really interested in me, you would have already had a different conversation with me. The fact that you're not engaging in that level of conversation means that I'm not your top priority. And then what they will do is thank you for the opportunity to talk with you, then will disappear. And so moving quickly is the solution to that. Now, again, we want to make sure we move quickly, but we want to do it in a way that's thoughtful so that you're constantly looking at the best prospects and candidates for consideration.
I don't know where we are.
Yeah, go ahead, Mark, and we will continue conversation in the executive session, and we move into executive session. Well, you can ask a question and then.
Yeah, I have a couple thoughts. So you said that you don't want to make decisions for us. Thank you. But I think might be okay to make decisions screening out weaker candidates, not choosing top, screening out weaker candidates. I've been involved in some CEO searches at K-12 level, which is much different, a lot more K-12 districts, universities, colleges. But one thing that would happen is that early in the search, there are itinerant searchers, and there are itinerant chronic searchers and itinerant administrators. And the search firm could easily generate some of those because they do exactly what you call, because those are the same people. And then these names would appear, and they're usually not who you want. And I think not looking at those kinds of candidates just saves. So, I mean, you know something about the history of the pool. And I think I'm just speaking as one of 18. It's okay to do some screening at the bottom.
That's something we'll talk in closed session about.
Yeah.
Because I need your permission to do it, and then we'll do with that. But we also need to make sure that there's some guidelines as to how I do it. Because a part of my rule is, if I'm gonna do something like that, then I want to make sure you all have access to all the files.
Yeah.
So that way you can see,
So
right?
that's what we're gonna move
We'll
to
talk
the,
about
yeah,
it.
we're gonna
I'm
move
so
to,
thrilled with the organization in the provost search.
Yeah.
It's brilliant, and you'll love it. You'll love it, Mark. It's-
Yeah, it
You're,
doesn't
you're
count.
talking about the right things, but Alberto's.
yeah, so thank you for all your input, and next on our agenda is an executive session for legal advice and discussion regarding the University of Arizona presidential search process and for possible discussion regarding potential prospects. Do I have a motion to enter into executive session for the items listed on the executive session agenda?
So moved.
Thank you.
Second.
Is there a second? Thank you, Humberto. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Any abstention? Motion carries.